Welcome back, dreamers. Hey, I'm Echo, and I have really vivid dreams. Like, dreams so vivid they haunt me a little, and maybe a little too much time to overthink them. Welcome to Echoes of Becoming, a quiet place for big feelings, vivid dreams, and the slow unraveling of who we were told to be. A space for those of us who are tired, curious, and figuring it out as we go. This isn't a guru podcast. I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. I'm just trying to make sense of mine. Through dreams, through symbols, through weird metaphors that sometimes make more sense than reality. Because my dreams have a way of telling me exactly what I didn't know I needed to hear. The kind of stuff I think we all need reminding of more often. They're reminders, little nudges from somewhere deeper, that there's more to life than the version we've been told to settle for. So if you're into weird dreams, emotional rabbit holes, and the occasional existential spiral, stick around. Let's see where this one takes us. Today's dream starts in a school, a vast, maze-like one, full of long hallways, forgotten classrooms, and something that just felt off. I was the chosen one, or at least I was supposed to be. There was this great evil I was meant to fight. Except it wasn't a monster, or a villain, or even something you could punch. It was rot, decay, spores creeping through the walls, ghost pipe mushrooms growing where folks used to attend classes. And as I moved through this dream, I realized something. This dream wasn't about saving the world. It was a dream about trying to save myself, my vast, wandering, hall-filled mind. It was about burnout, about losing pieces of who I am, and about doubting if those parts of me were gone forever, or if I could step into my so-called power to reclaim them. Let's begin. As I mentioned, this evil wasn't a monster or person really. It was decay, alive, but slow and devouring, quietly consuming and spreading. The dream took place in a vast school, a labyrinth of hallways and classrooms, lockers, and closed doors. Once a place of learning, curiosity, friendships, now partly overtaken and ruined. A growing corruption that turned classrooms into hollowed-out husks, filled with large bulging mushrooms, withering desks, collapsed ceilings. A haunting silence hung over places that were once bright and alive. Thankfully, I wasn't alone in there. I had allies, though I never quite saw them. I just knew they were around, somewhere in these halls. But I also knew some of them had already died and were now part of the decay themselves. But some had also been reincarnated, not as who they were before, but as other beings, animals, creatures. I recognized them by their markings, by something in their presence, something familiar beneath the surface. They had returned. We were spread too thin. We patrolled the school to keep the rot at bay, but there weren't enough of us. We were losing. At one point, while patrolling with my best friend, I came upon the decaying corpse of one of my dear friends I hadn't seen in some time. I was used to death by then, but this one, it just cut deep. It was just one too many friends lost. This battle had been going on for years, and I felt exhausted. There was a moment in the dream where I wanted to give up. I wasn't strong enough. I couldn't stop it. I didn't believe I was truly the chosen one. So I turned to my best friend and I told her to leave. to take her husband and run, to get far away from here and live a good, long life. But she refused. She stayed. She believed in me, and so, together, we stayed and continued our fight. And on that note of optimism and tenacity, I woke up. First of all, ugh, I know. Dreams are notorious for their anticlimactic endings. It's like getting to the end of a novel and realizing someone ripped out the last few pages. And in that sense, aren't they just like real life? No perfect ending, no neat little epilogue. But besides, we're not here for tidy stories. We're here to explore our inner chasms. So let's talk about the dream itself, the symbols it offered, and what they might mean. The first and most obvious symbol was the school. It felt like a metaphor for the mind, a maze of rooms and winding hallways filled with memories, losses, and old lessons. In this dream, I couldn't tell where it began or ended. There was no central office, no exit. It just stretched endlessly. Some parts of it looked fine, quiet and unused, but still intact. But then you'd turn a corner or open a door and find a room completely overtaken by rot. Places that had been forgotten too long, neglected. Like that language class you took for 2 semesters over a decade ago, and now you can barely remember how to say hello. The decay crept in, slowly consuming, warping, distorting, eating away all the potential of these once vibrant rooms. The ones of us who patrolled would try to keep it from creeping in, if we could catch it early enough. Try to bring it back to life somehow, or bring life into it. Kind of how looking at old photos can bring faded memories back into the present. It was like just the act of stepping into the classroom, opening the windows, dusting it a bit, or even writing a desk or two could help make the room breathe again. But the school was just too big. The decay felt like a metaphor for those times where our mental health starts to slip because of anxiety, burnout, stress, depression, all of it. Like the spreading rot, a deteriorating mental space can make it feel like we're slowly losing parts of ourselves. Our hobbies, passions, and curiosity can become muted, erased by something that feels stronger than us. And yet, I was the chosen one, which makes sense since it was my mind. The interesting thing about this archetype is that the chosen one is not someone who in fact chooses this role. Instead, they're usually someone who has responsibility thrust upon them and who does their best to rise to the challenge. This archetype has often come up in my dreams, like in the one described in episode 1. It's a role I experience in my dreams as something heavy with responsibility, isolation, and a fear of failure. But it's also a role that is full of possibilities and potential. The potential to change the narrative, to make a difference. And I wasn't completely alone. Not really. I had allies, despite not ever running into them in the dream. They were seemingly invisible people who patrolled the school, helping keeping the evil from spreading too quickly. And some even reincarnated, changing forms. These were symbols, I believe, for people in your life that seem to quietly help keep you afloat. Like the cashier who complimented your outfit, or the author whose book helped you breathe a little easier for a while. It's important, I think, to notice the little and big ways these people can keep us going during difficult times. They give us hope, even the ones who quietly fade away. And finally, there was my one friend, the one who refused to leave. When I asked her to save herself, to take her husband and leave, she refused. She was not going to let me fight this fight on my own. I think she represented our innermost selves, that quiet voice that remains behind all the loud voices that come from the mental programming of our upbringing, authority figures, society, etc. She was a reminder that all was not lost, that we were still fighting, together, even on the hard days. You might doubt that that voice exists within you, but I promise, it's there. But sometimes our inner noise is so much like the outside world. All we hear are the loud Karens. All we see are the angry truck drivers who honk at us and cut us off in traffic. Because they're exactly that. Loud, obnoxious. They make us feel unsafe, angry, threatened. But the best friend at your core? She's not like that. She's steady, quietly supportive, easy to miss, but impossible to replace. She's like all those other drivers on the road that are quietly following the flow of traffic, or those gentle shoppers who thank the workers at the store. You may not notice them, but they're there, and they have their quiet impact too. So yeah, despite this dream being shorter and a little less detailed story-wise, I think it was a good reminder for all of us that even when things seem dire, even when our mental health is suffering due to low points in our lives, that it's important to keep resisting, to keep patrolling, to keep the decay at bay. I actually really like the metaphor of the school, not only because it was a good metaphor for our minds, but also because I think a lot of us have mixed feelings about our time in that sort of institution. I mean, think about it. We spend so many years of our lives in schools. It's where we formed friendships, where we discovered parts of ourselves, where we explored the world. It's where we had bad teachers that scarred us and really good ones who made us fall in love with certain subjects because of their passion. It's where we developed crushes and got our hearts broken. Even though schools have always been tangled up with trauma for me, I've always loved learning. It's the most enduring thread in my life. I'm always searching, always wondering, always wanting to go deeper. But somewhere after I finished university, something changed. I entered the adult world. I took jobs I didn't believe in, and I shrunk myself to fit into systems that were never meant for people like me. And slowly, without realizing it, the decay began, and I started losing access to parts of myself. I've had weeks, sometimes months, especially over the last few years, where I became so depressed, so hollow, that I'd find ways to numb myself every day just to feel something. I used food for comfort and gained weight. I'd binge drink on weekends. I stopped reading. I stopped creating. I just faded. And yet, some part of me kept patrolling the halls. Some stubborn little ember in me refused to let the rot consume everything. On good days, I'd open up my audiobook app and listen to a self-help book by Martha Beck or Gay Hendricks, and I let them fill my mind with their stories, ideas, and inspiration. Even though I was losing, I was still there. And then about 7 months ago now, I was laid off. Why? Because the world is changing, and the company I'd been working for hadn't kept up with it. But it didn't feel like failure. I wasn't scared. I was freed. If you've ever had a terrible soul-sucking job, I think you might know what I'm talking about. That feeling of, holy smokes, I never have to get up and go to that job ever again. And yeah, I know I should be shaking in my boots right now. My savings are dwindling. My debt's creeping up. Maybe I'm a little delusional, but seriously, this sense of freedom, of claiming back those classrooms and hallways in my mind, of feeling like life is coming back, even in parts of me I thought were lost for good, it's indescribable. It's euphoric. It's real. I feel like I'm at a crossroads right now. Like, I want to try coming at life from a different angle, something more true, more free. I want to find ways to use my creativity, my self expression, and my gifts to create a different sort of life for myself. Not everyone feels it yet, but I think the world is changing. This is my first time being unemployed with AI in the mix, and I'm finding it a little intimidating in a sense. Because there are so many tasks that AIs are slowly learning to do, and so many jobs that will just poof out of existence soon. And at the rate things are moving, it kind of feels like the world will have to pivot in some major ways. This might be the optimist in me, but I see a world where we have more free time down the line. Like maybe one where we're more like creative supervisors who work with AI and technology in tandem to keep the world running. Honestly, I don't know. I haven't done enough research on the topic. It's more that I've worked enough jobs to know how repetitive and mundane so many of them are. And I think those could totally be done by artificial intelligence. I know it scares a lot of people because when things change this fast, it can feel like the end of the world. But what we seem to forget a lot is how we are human, and that means we adapt. Like, we adapted when computers and the internet came along. We adapted when factories replaced jobs. We will adapt again. We will have to, I think. And like I said, I think we will have a lot more free time when these mundane, repetitive jobs disappear. More time for self exploration, creativity, human connection. And I think that's really going to freak some people out because we've been conditioned for so long to equate self worth with productivity. Like, seriously, the second question people ask you when meeting you is, "What do you do for a living?" half the time. I hate that question. Maybe it's because I've had nothing but dead end jobs, but I've never felt like my job ever represented who I really am. I've been a troubleshooting help desk agent, a secretary, an educational assistant, a job coach, a barista, a customer service rep. But none of those titles have ever felt like they had anything to do with me. In fact, I think that clinging to our job titles like they're part of our identity really sets us back. Because you are not what you do to earn money to live. You are not less or more because of it. When I was laid off, I felt free. But the rest of my team who were laid off too panicked. They all turned around and immediately got jobs that make sense in the same industry with companies we worked alongside of. And I know for a fact that none of them liked their job. There was nothing inspiring or soul nourishing about it. We were band aid administrators, dealing with old, failing technology equipment that business owners were too cheap to upgrade. We dealt with apathetic third party vendors who didn't give two hoots about their clients so long as they were paying their monthly fees. I really do think that these are the kinds of jobs that AI will take over first. And honestly, that might be a gift. Because I can't be the only one whose brain slowly gets taken over by rot and decay when I force myself to wake up day after day to show up for those kinds of jobs. And by the way, I know not all jobs are equal. If you actually do love your job, that's seriously awesome. It's even more awesome if you like the people you work with. I know there are employers out there that aren't just crap and really do care about their employees. If I have to look for work again, I hope I stumble onto one of them. All I know is that there are way too many people out there who hate their jobs and are told to just be grateful that they have one. And I hope that narrative changes in my lifetime so that people can live more fulfilled and true to themselves lives. But in the meantime, let's remember this dream I had. Let's remember that loyal friend that lives inside each of us, telling us not to give up, that the fight isn't lost. Reminding us that we don't need to figure it out all at once, standing by our side during even the darkest of times when everything seems pointless and hopeless. Because this dream, this story, wasn't about defeat. It was about restoration, about going back to the places that have grown silent and dark and saying, I remember you. And here's the truth. If the rot is still there, there's still life. Fungus doesn't feed on nothing. It feeds on what's still alive. That means there's something under the surface, a pulse, a whisper of what once was. We don't have to go back to who we were. That's not the point. You don't need ballet shoes or a slim waist to feel the joy that dancing once gave you. You don't need the same body or circumstances to reclaim the feeling, that aliveness, the freedom, that sense of belonging in your own skin. And those feelings, they're not gone. They're waiting behind the locked doors, under the decay. You can go back. You are the chosen one in your own life. You might not know how to drive away the decay that seems to be spreading in your mind at times. You might not know how to wield your power. But if you persevere, someday, you will. And if you've closed doors inside yourself, if some part of you whispers that it's too late, that you're too far gone, I want you to hear this. Those places are not gone. And yes, they can be reclaimed. Even if the walls are covered in dust, even if you barely remember the way, even if the rot feels like it's crept in so far you can't even feel yourself anymore, you're still in there. And the ones you've loved, those soul teachers, those glimpses of magic, they return. Not always in the same form, but in new voices, new books, new moments of connection, echoing the feeling you thought you'd lost. And you? You are still the chosen one, because this is your mind, your life, and it's not too late. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to get everything right. You don't need to always be strong. Because even if you fail, even if you fall, even if you just lay there in a puddle of your own tears for a while, you can always choose to get back up when you're ready. I don't think we change our lives in grand gestures. I think we change our lives in small incremental steps. By just looking at where we'd like to be, even if it's just a vague sense of wanting more freedom or realness, and then taking the next step forward towards that goal. And one day, you'll look up and realize all those little steps brought you exactly where you were meant to go. All right, that's it for this episode of Echoes of Becoming. If something in today's dream stirred something in you, amazing. That means you're paying attention. You can find more reflections, visuals, and whatever else I'm up to on YouTube or on my other socials. And if you've got a dream or just a thought you want to share, I'd love to hear it. Comment or send me a message. Until next time, stay curious, stay soft, and don't believe everything this so-called reality tries to sell you. You're becoming too. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep dreaming, dreamer.